Alright, Chevrolet Cavaliers from 1995 right up to 2005 were pretty similar, including their headlights. However, starting with the year 2000, right up until 2002, about a 3-year period, they started to attach the signal lights onto the headlights of the Cavaliers. Other than that, most General Motors J cars from that era have really easy to take out headlights. So I'm going to show you how to take the headlight out of a 2001 Cavalier. This Cavalier happens to be a 2001, and to the best of my knowledge it should be the same for a 2002 Cavalier or a 2000 Cavalier. I already took this out from here, and I'll take this one out next. And to do that, I'm just going to hook something under there. This is just a clothespin. And, oop, broke the clothespin. Those little hold down tabs, basically you pull up on the smaller top circle, and once it's a little bit separated from the wider bottom circle, it should come out fairly easily. You don't really want to force the bottom circle. You don't really want to have anything to do with the bottom circle until the first one is pulled up a bit. Once that's done, you shouldn't have too much trouble pulling the little tab out of place. Already getting full of car dirt, but anyway, just pull those out. And with those little hold down tabs out of the way, should be able to pull this plastic thing back so it can unbolt the headlight. There and there. Whatever tool you have at hand that you can take that out the quickest with, whatever. Whatever works. When lifting out the headlights on these cars from 1995 right up until, I guess, 2005, as far as I know, it remains mostly the same. I can't think of any differences that I know of, except for this one right here. At this point, the signal lights are attached to the headlights, and you have to remove the headlight to detach the signal light from it. Now, as always, you still have to lift up a little bit, or mainly have the lower backmost part of the headlight has to lift up a little bit when pulling out the headlight. But with the signal light attached, it's very hard to do that. So it can be a lot of a struggle. Well, there's a lot of struggle involved, basically, or at least there usually is, I find. But I've found that after a while, you can get it out. I kind of want to say don't force it. Try not to break anything forcing it, but at the same time, ultimately, because with the signal light attached, it doesn't really move enough to really come out easily. You are going to end up pulling fairly hard, but try to keep in mind that the headlight has to lift up a little bit, or should lift up a little bit to come out. But it's the back part of the headlight that really has to raise up. But like I said, the signal light is a problem. Well, when they changed the headlight in the year 2000, the year 2000, they made it a lot harder to remove. Older Cavaliers as well as Sunfires, it hadn't been much of a problem to remove the headlight. But once they tethered, you can unhook the two, but once they attached the signal light, the main headlight, you have to pull and pull and pull to get the headlight and signal light out, and they come together, and that's just horrible. It is. And you have to grab them somewhere where you're fairly sure you're not going to break them, and then you just have to keep pulling harder and harder. It's bad, because you're pulling with a force that if you pull in the wrong part, you might break the plastic that this is made out of. So it's not a good setup. It used to be a good setup, but this is not a good setup. But anyway, it came out after a while. Some worry. I didn't have to take off the fender though, just to remove the headlight. And some crows are watching. But yeah, so the headlight is now out. So now I can change the bulb. And you just turn this part here, and it should be able to, there. That's the bulb that's burnt out, and it's only burnt out on low beam. Still have high beam. And it seems as though it totally turned off the daytime running lights on both sides when the bulb burnt out. But at least it sets off a warning light so that you know. You know that the bulb is burnt out. Or partly burnt out. The low beam half of the bulb is burnt out. So I'll go get the other bulb and plug it into the thing here with the electrical connector, and then put that back into the headlight and screw on that little part that holds it in place. I can't remember if it's easier to take the signal light off of the headlight and then put that in and then clip them together as you push the headlight back in, or if it's easier to put it in as all one piece. Either way, it's a struggle, and I'm sure I'll figure that out all over again as I try to put that headlight back in. The old headlight is held in place with it's just a little clip here to pry off and pop it out of there, which is it's not going to be that big of a task, but with just one hand it's a little awkward, so I'll probably have to put down the camera. You can kind of see where you unclip it. This is going to have to go on over This will have to go on over the new bulb, this one being the new one, and that one being the burnt out one, before it goes into the little clip, because this is going to help it hold the bulb itself into the headlight after this is hooked up to the electrical connector. So this will have to go on first, then the electrical connector gets plugged into it. Alright, if I didn't do anything stupid and get it backwards, it should look like this. See how loose that is? But of course it's going to have the electrical wires on the other side, and then this will screw into the back of the headlight, or click on, or whatever you'd say. It doesn't really screw very much to get in place. This will be holding it into the headlight. Pretty loose until it gets put in place. Now, this just goes into there. Right in there. For some reason today it was a little more stubborn going back into place than usual, but it doesn't matter. It didn't take too long and it's back in place. And that was still a whole lot easier than it was pulling the headlight out so you could access it. Now to shove the headlight back into place so it can be bolted back in. See right here, you can just push on this thing right here. Right here. And push on this tab. The tab that's in the center of the screen, just push on that to disconnect the signal light from the headlight, and that'll probably make things easier. Just move the signal light out of the way, then get the headlight into place. It sets into place really easily. Now I'll just click the signal light onto the headlight. That's right, I moved the signal light out of the way first. That's what I have to do. Have to move the signal light out of the way of the headlight. Now the headlight goes in really easily, and I should be able to slide the signal light into place while it clicks back onto the headlight. Hopefully that'll work. That should work. Alright, the fact that I've done this a few times before made it easier for me to remember, but as always I have to screw around with it a while before I remember how to do it. And it would have been a lot easier if I was doing this on my 96 Cavalier, the old 1996 Cavalier. Or the 1999 Sunfire. I've done this too before. I think it's I'm not sure if it's easier. No, I think it is easier on the 2003, but it has somewhat different headlights as well. But the Cavaliers and Sunfires that were older than this, they were a lot easier, I found. So anyway, all that's left is to put the bolts back in, and these little plastic clips, which I took a few more out just to give myself a little extra room, But anyway, they should just shove right back down into place and pop right back in. And that's all that's left for the headlight, other than me cleaning some of the dirt off of myself, car dirt. So yeah, this is pretty much done. Hopefully the headlight works. You know, while I had the headlight out, I should have sprayed some fluid film or rust check or Crown anti-rust stuff, and whatever can of whatever I could find. I should have sprayed some of that up in the fender where the headlight and signal light were removed, and there was a lot of space to do that. I should have done that while I had the chance, but where changing the headlight in this is a lot more frustrating than in the older Cavaliers and Sunfires, I was just glad to have it over with. But actually it didn't take me too long this time, so I guess the fact I did it before made it easier. It was just a matter of remembering how I did it before. Yep, the headlights are working in all beam settings. That's a sign the job was a success. Alright, I really couldn't do the best camera angles, or I couldn't show myself doing every single step. I could just show you what the steps were as they're about to be done, because you need both hands. And I couldn't hold the camera and do a lot of this at the same time. But hopefully this was a help to anybody who's wondering why all of a sudden a Cavalier from the year 2000 or the year 2001 or 2002, whatever, those 3 years, wondering why it's so hard to get the headlight out when it's so easy on a 95 Cavalier or a 96 Cavalier or a 99 Sunfire. You know. Hopefully this was helpful to somebody somewhere, and maybe I'll look back at it myself just to remind myself how this is done. The first couple times I tried it, I checked various guidebooks, and they weren't much help because they just showed me how it was done for a 95 or a 96 or a 99 for that matter, and I already knew how to do that, and it was easy. And the headlight just didn't want to come out, and I didn't want to force it, but I ended up forcing more than I wanted to, and I got the headlight out. And putting it back in was a bit of a struggle too, until I realized exactly what I had to do. And every time I go to put it back, I always forget, does the signal light go in first, or the headlight go in first, or do they have to be together? And I always have to just play around with it just a little bit until I realize, alright, the headlight goes in, and then the signal light goes in, and they kind of click together when you push the signal light in. I only did it a few times, but it's actually fairly easy to get the headlight back in once you know what you're doing. So this video will help me remind myself how everything comes apart and goes back together. And it actually is fairly simple. And hopefully it was a help to anybody else who might have been struggling with something this simple. Because it is kind of simple, but it is kind of tricky at the same time, because you really don't want to pull on something so hard that you're going to break it. But if you've taken the headlights out of a Cavalier before the year 2000, you'd think it was going to be really easy and come out really straightforward once everything's unbolted. And at least this one, I've never found it that simple with this one. There's always just a little bit of struggle, and I always worry I'm going to break something as I'm pulling it out.